Hey guys, I'm Shantae. I'm not going to give you my age, just follow my Instagram and you'll find out. And I'm the founder of Revealing Magazine, and be sure to follow and subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Hey, I'm Vadim from Ajax, Ontario, and I'm 18 years old. I do spoken word.
Hey, my name is Jada, and I'm 21, and I'm an undergraduate student at York University.
Hi, I'm Ashley and I'm 28. I'm an administrator at the University of Toronto.
Hey, I'm Stefan, I'm 18 and I go to school at York University for criminology.
A couple of weeks ago was the Super Bowl. However, there was a lot of controversy surrounding it, mainly Travis Scott's performance. So today, me and my friends are going to be talking about the controversy surrounding it and whether or not Travis Scott made the right decision to perform at the Super Bowl.
My thoughts, to be honest, it wasn't like everyone was talking about boycotting it and all that. So I really thought like all the mainstream artists were about it too, because they're kind of the leaders in society or whatever. But like, it wasn't his decision to perform at the Super Bowl. Like, I thought he would do it for a purpose or something, you know? Because if you're gonna refuse, that means you're not with everything the NFL does and all that. But if he accepted it, I thought he would be like, you know what, let me just, you know, stand up for something. Like, I know he's Travis Scott, and his biggest song was like Sicko Mode or whatever, so he didn't really have much to say. But say, for example, when Beyonce performed her last performance, she was wearing like a Black Panther, like one of those throwback suits that those women were wearing, and she was getting a lot of hate, but she still did something that was kind of significant. So honestly, if he had done something like that, I would appreciate it, but I don't really think it was like the best move. Plus, it was like short as frick, so it wasn't really long. Yeah.
I feel like he did it, but like he wasn't trying to like promote any like or social change, or because he just did it just to get money off it. I feel like because like his performance was really short, so at the same time I feel like he didn't have the time to maybe address anything, kind of like how Beyonce did, because Beyonce had like the whole thing.
Yeah, she had the whole show.
But Travis Scott was literally just like a couple seconds, and then they switched to Maroon 5. So I feel like he just wasn't given that platform to do so. But at the same time, I feel like he wouldn't have done it regardless, because he stays out of like political discussion usually in the media. So
Yeah, he does.
yeah.
I don't know, like, I feel like him doing that just shows that social justice is no longer, you know, something that people really focus on anymore. It's more like clout chasing. So in the sense, like, I don't really care if there's like issues regarding like, you know, Black people, or not even Black people, just like social issues. I'm gonna do what is necessary to further my career and to say that I was at the Super Bowl and I performed. So I feel like people are kind of losing that, like, that moral sense, that moral compass. Like, it's no longer there anymore.
I get what you mean. Are you trying to say like people will hop like literally hop on a wave and try to be, you know, promote something, but not really do it for the actual cause, or just to be trendy? Mm-hmm. Or are you saying that they just won't do it at all? Like, which one do you mean?
I'm saying that they're doing it in the sense just to stay relevant. Because by him doing it, we're discussing it now, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, in the sense, like, him defying what other artists are doing is gonna make people continue talking about him and like further his career.
Yeah. I mean,
you know?
yeah, what you saying?
I feel like Travis Scott doesn't need that, because like he doesn't need to stay relevant. Like, he's the hottest artist right now. So who's hotter than Travis Scott? Like, does he really need the Super Bowl to stay in the discussion? Like, you know.
But to play like devil's advocate on that one, like the Super Bowl actually does push you to like a higher plateau in your career. Like, to be able to actually do it is pretty much can almost skyrocket your career, especially as like a young Black rapper who, for Super Bowl, they don't tend to sort of get those artists very much. And so although like I wasn't always kind of so on board with him doing it, at the same time I realized that it is a huge thing for his career, because typically people who do the Super Bowl are like people who are very well known in the world as artists, and for like a Black rapper to be able to go on that sort of platform where Super Bowl is not only watched by Americans but all over the world, it really would have skyrocketed his career in that way too, to sort of a different level.
See, my thing when this whole thing started was like, this is no offense to Travis Scott, like he's a great guy, his music is great, but why are we putting so much like thought into like he should be saying something else for social justice? Like he's never really done anything with that before. So it's like when people are getting outraged, like he's performing, it's like this is his job. He's supposed to perform, like Ashley was saying, like this is the Super Bowl. This is something that will elevate his career. We should be putting so much faith into him being like, yeah, he's gonna stand up with Colin Kaepernick and he's gonna be there for the black people. Like you can do both. Like Beyonce did a performance, but at that time that Beyonce did a performance, I think the social climate was different, and where Colin Kaepernick is with his stance with the NFL, and then Travis Scott deciding to go on the performance, and then you also have the aspect of like it was with Maroon 5. It wasn't even his whole set, so I feel like we put way too much faith into him to be like, yeah, maybe he's just like not doing it.
I agree with it, because you know what it is? I think it's us too. Like I remember watching a Cardi B video. She was, I don't know why, but I was watching, I was just on her Instagram, and she was like, you know what? I didn't ask to be your leader or whatever. I didn't ask to represent you guys, so I don't know why you guys put so much, you know, this image that I'm supposed to represent all the young females, even though they do have a lot of attention. But I feel like we just put that on him. Like I never, we shouldn't expect him to do any of that, to be honest.
But I feel like once you hit a certain like image in the public, and once you have so much influence over what people think and what people do, then you kind of have like you're kind of obligated to, you know, influence in the right way rather than the negative way. Because if Travis Scott were to address those things, I feel like a lot would change. Because he has that influence, you understand? Like, yeah, I understand we shouldn't put too much faith in him, but like, I feel like you're obligated to once you have those type of influences.
So you just think like any artist who goes mainstream is supposed to do it? Like,
but I feel like once you're at a certain point and you have a certain following, you're automatically a role model, regardless if you accept it or not. There's like people looking up to you, and you can change people's perceptions and the way how they see life and how they view life, because their music is literally repeated by like 14-year-old, 15-year-olds like constantly. You know what I'm saying? So if you're just gonna at least make a statement within the 5 seconds you perform, I don't know, I feel like that could have opened young people's eyes to be like, you know what, we should definitely stand with Kaepernick, you know, on this one.
I mean, he was thinking for himself. I mean, like you said, it was kind of big for his career. It wasn't too long, but you know, it kind of elevated him. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it's not something that everybody wants, but like when you get into that sort of public light, you kind of have a bit of a responsibility in terms of like the amount of people who view you, watch you, kind of follow after you. And so I think really where you see the difference in how things worked out is with Colin Kaepernick and what he did, and with what Travis Scott did, right? Because Colin Kaepernick is in the same limelight, right? And so he used his platform in a way to sort of address a social issue.
What I think it is, though?
Yeah,
you know what I think? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you know what I think it is? Is there's a downfall too. I just think took that in. Colin Kaepernick, like people maybe they want to, but they're scared of like. They're a little bit nervous of what's gonna happen, like all the backlash and all that. Like, you know, he could get a bunch of hate letters, and that's exactly what happened to Beyonce, like just threats and all that. So, I feel like maybe there are some people that want to use it, but they may be scared of the consequences. So
do you feel like we put too much pressure like on these celebrities for social change, or?
Not necessarily pressure, but like going back to how you're saying like they're influencers and they have this big audience and things like that, that's fine, and you know their music is reaching millions of people, but like what we have to take into consideration is that they have the choice to do whatever they want. They don't need to be up there being social justice changers, you know, helping the world. Like what he could have done after the Super Bowl was, you know, give back to his community. Like we don't know what he's doing outside of his time. Like we only get to see these people from what they share on Instagram, through their music. We don't know what they're doing in their lives, and like that comment gets brought up a lot with like a lot of male rappers who are like, oh, like, what are you doing for the community? Like you're just out here spending your money doing all that, but we don't know what's behind the scenes. Like a lot of people come for Drake and Jay-Z, like what are you guys doing for the black community? It's like they have tons of stuff going, so we don't really know like beyond the Super Bowl, like what is like their influence actually. So,
in my opinion, like Colin Kaepernick did the hardest hit, because I think in terms of what he was trying to do too, they really like turned it on him. Like so he decided to like kneel for the anthem, and so that caused solidarity, but also a lot of backlash for what he chose to do, but he was addressing an issue that was a very prominent one in the United States at the time. And I think what happened in him doing that was that they twisted to say he's not patriotic because he's not standing for the anthem. And so it wasn't really, that's not what he was trying to do. It's not that he's not patriotic, it's just that he knew that he wanted to sort of reach the masses with the platform that he has and where he is, and he definitely took the biggest hit for it in terms of his entire career, right? And it's true, not everybody may have that sort of ability or freedom or to want to make that sort of change. And, and then you do definitely pay a price when you do it. But in some ways, like, you know, you have to count the cost, I guess, to say, and like, is it actually worth it, right?
It definitely sparks something potentially. Like it's good. Like it will get something started. Like a lot of people started kneeling. Like,
it started a whole wave. It started a wave.
There has to be one. There always has to be one word that just takes all like a soldier boy. You know? that just takes all the credit for all the, you know, just starting everything, starting the movement.
In this case, would be Travis.
But it's kind of a side topic. But do you guys feel like Colin Kaepernick made the right move in kneeling and protesting against the NFL, or do you feel like he shouldn't have?
No, he definitely did like the right thing. I obviously don't know him personally, but like I would assume that when he decided to do that, he's like, you know, this is enough. Like I can't, you know, see my black brothers and sisters being murdered by the police, you know, going through so much stuff that's happening right now, that I'm in this position, let me see if I can do something with it. And I commend him for that, because playing football is his dream. This is what he wanted to do forever, and now he's not even doing that anymore, which sucks for him, but he did so much for his community, and he brought a lot of awareness to a lot of injustice that was going on in America, and I feel like we just have to stand with him. Like, he took a really big, and kneel with him and be beside him.
You know, that's what bothers me. Like, he's like sacrificing his career, you know, his way of living, you know. And I feel like when you have guys like Travis Scott who are at a high level, I feel like there's nothing wrong. And no disrespect to Travis Scott, but he was on the stage for 2 seconds. You know what I'm saying? He could have sacrificed that 2 seconds to be like, nah, I'm gonna stand with my brother. You know what I'm saying?
I'm pretty sure he had rehearsals and he's seen that he only had 2 seconds.
Yes.
he should have, you know. But
that's the only thing I don't agree with. But like, as you guys said, like, we can't force these guys to be social activists. Like, they're regular people. They want to make their money, and as you said, by being a social activist, you can risk your job. You know, you can lose sales, you can lose popularity, you can lose his money. He has a kid. He's not a wife, but his girlfriend kind of. You know what I mean? You know? So he doesn't want to risk his family over social activism. Can I blame him for that? No. You know, he's not Martin Luther King, but he's still just a regular guy.
Yeah. But like, again, like going back, like in that moment, wearing a beret or like, you know, even doing it for the culture and putting on like an Afro wig, like do something to be like, I'm gonna perform, but I just still like know that my morals are like with Kaepernick, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, like.
And so it was a weird controversy, because like we can even take it back, like that, like it's not even his show. Like he was just featured. Like this is Maroon 5's like big performance, and like even before that, people were calling on them to like, you guys shouldn't be performing at the Super Bowl. Like, but it's like we can't force people to change their political views. We don't know Maroon 5. Like Maroon 5 hasn't come out and be like, yeah, we stand with, you know, Colin Kaepernick and things like that. So Travis Scott had his performance and he didn't do anything. That's fine. Like there's such more like activism that's happening beyond like celebrities, like the grassroots companies, like going in neighborhoods and like helping young black students and kids. Like I feel like that's where our attention should be focused on. And yeah, I mean, Travis Scott did
I totally agree with that point though, that like we should really be focusing on like the other sorts of activism that are actually happening in the community. But it's a little tricky because some people have like what you said with Beyonce, how she actually did take a stand during that sort of moment. Like there actually are a lot of other people outside of like Beyonce and other artists that have actually taken a stand at the Super Bowl. So like I think it was like U2. I don't know if you guys know who U2 is, but it's just like this very famous rock band, very like worldwide known, and they at the time I think like did this sort of thing for 9/11, and they had all the names come down and everything as part of their performance. So you do have an opportunity to still do something in that moment, and I think they give you the flexibility to be able to do it as an artist, so you do have that choice. And I don't even think it only would be so much that Travis Scott would do that, but actually Maroon 5, really, like, who is a top billing artist, to be the one to take that responsibility, because they took the responsibility of taking on Travis Scott and Big Boy as a part of his performance, and they got a lot of backlash about that from the beginning, right? Especially as being like black rappers performing in the Super Bowl and how people would relate to that. So I think also the onus goes back on Maroon 5 as well, knowing the controversy that
We don't
happened.
really talk about Maroon 5.
We don't, yeah, they're not the
It's, like,
scapegoats.
swept underneath, like,
Because they're not black, so I guess we assume they're not gonna do it anyway.
which is not good, because we need allies. We need allies in this fight against, you know.
Exactly.
And like it just shows where like mankind, like it's like we separate ourselves so much, and no one wants that universal responsibility to be like, okay, like I'm not black, I'm not Asian, but at the same time, right is right, you know.
That's true.
So I don't know. It just shows like that shows like the divisions that are still in society, which is like so sad. You know.
Do you guys see the Nike ad with Colin Kaepernick?
Yeah, that was good.
So do you guys feel like that was real activism, or do you guys feel like that was just them boosting their sales? Because like after that ad, I'm pretty sure their sales went through the roof. Like that ad went viral. So like, what do you guys think?
Here's the thing. Okay. The ad it was a really great ad. Nike, you know, they got their money, but I see both sides. I understand why people might have been like, I'm like, why is he doing an ad with Nike? Like, I thought he's supposed to be, you know, active, like being his activist self and doing all these great things, but at the same time, he needs to make his money as well. Like, I mean, he has to get a profit from what he's doing. He lost his whole career, guys. You take that perspective. I also see the other side of people like, why is he working with Nike? Like, shouldn't he be doing like not doing such big campaigns? But it's like, you can use your platform however you see fit. If you're gonna put out an ad with Nike that can reach millions of people and start a conversation, then go for it. I don't really see a problem with that. So, I mean, it's 50-50. You can take whichever side you want, but I don't really see a problem with the ad that when it came out.
I don't see a problem either. I mean, there's a lot of big brands that are suspects. Like, we should know that, you know, they don't,
Like Gucci, like that's
But the thing is, Nike has athletes like Serena Williams and LeBron James. Like, those people are known to talk a lot about, you know, stand up for the people. So when I look at that, I'll be like, you know what, like all that more than an athlete thing movement with LeBron, I think I'm not gonna hate on Nike for doing that. But like it's still, you don't really know who's sitting up in the offices and you know what their intentions are. But I think it's smart that it reach a lot of people. So
I don't know. I don't rate it. And I'm gonna be real. Because I feel like if these corporations want to make a difference, all they need to do is be like, for all the athletes, football players that don't want to kneel, we're cutting your contract.
Okay, no, that's tough.
That's-
You can't do
that's-
that.
No. That's what I would.
That's kind of wild. My God. I'm not gonna say I don't or like I disagree with Nike, because at the same time, as you said, it was 50-50. Like Colin Kaepernick made money off that ad, most likely. They boosted their sales, yes, but they also created a conversation around it, you know. So I don't know.
Why do you, Shantae, why do you feel that way? That like Nike should be way more powerful or what?
Because I feel like the money, like in these, football isn't football without Nike, without Adidas. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of their athletes are getting money from sponsorships. That's what keeps them in the league. You know what I'm saying? So if you could at least, you know, cut off that supply force and really, not even that, but just like, you know, kind of, that, cut off their supply force and really make the athletes like not fear, because a lot of times these athletes fear protesting because the results that would happen as a result of it.
I feel like it's different for here's the thing, the NBA and the NFL are very like different. Like the NBA athletes have protested many times, like even against the Clippers owner a while ago. They like the whole movement happened where you guys know what happened, but the NBA is known for having like athletes stand up and hold hands and T-shirts representing something. But the NFL, I don't think they necessarily fear the Adidas and the Nikes. I think they fear their actual league contracts. Like they don't want to lose that, because if you were to cut off the sponsorships, that's probably like what 20% of it. I don't know, but the more of their contract comes from the NFL, and they know they don't want to lose that. They know how powerful owners are. and like it's a pretty scary situation. I would say, like, I don't think a Nike should or Adidas should do something like that. But I know what you're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
That would come from the league, though. If something like that was to happen, I think it would come from the league doing that.
I think also too, like, I definitely agree with your point as well. Like, a lot of it is money making and how they kind of take what's happening right now and making it something that they can make money off of. But I think in the argument for like the actual person, so like Colin Kaepernick, Serena, whoever's doing it, there's different forms of protest. And so sometimes you have to be able to know how to strategize in terms of your process. So I mean strategize on how you actually protest, like what you're looking for. How do you get your message across to people in a way that can reach the masses almost. So even though it may seem like maybe you're selling out or something like that, you can also in some way be strategizing how you protest. So some people, will protest in a sense with violence and some people won't. And so I think sometimes people use these things as a tool in order to be able to reach the masses. So I'm kind of 50-50 too. I'm like, I don't necessarily always agree with it, but at the same time I know that it's going to reach a lot more people. And so sometimes it's a strategy in how you actually protest, because Nike is a big corporation. A lot of people pay attention to it and focus on it and will, it's not only so much about the money but the message. So sometimes it kind of, I'm 50-50 too on that one.
That's true. And even during the Super Bowl, during the commercials, I know they're a lot of money, but I feel like if Nike really wanted to make a message, why not do a commercial that's that has something to do with social justice, maybe a Black Panther commercial or something.
They've done something similar, but not necessarily. That's weird. It's 50-50, like everyone's saying. They've done something that's, this makes a little bit of sense, but it's not straight on. That's the thing, though. So they're kind of distancing themselves while being, close enough. So it's kind of different. But the thing is, I feel like all these big corporations, that they should specifically the companies like Nike and Adidas, they should really just play fire with fire. People will literally fear if they're that's the thing. A lot of us have just been raising awareness for the past 20 years. Awareness can only go so far. There needs to be action. If the NBA, the reason they let their athletes protest is because that's a lot of income. If they didn't let LeBron post, that's literally the show of every year in the playoffs. So if they didn't let him protest, they would lose a lot of money off of that. So if we were anyhow, we were able to instill any type of fear or demand something, and to the NFL specifically, to make them know that if you don't do this, you will lose something, then change would come. But right now, I don't think it could happen. So
I kind of think that it's in this case too, I actually do feel for Colin Kaepernick, because I don't feel like what happened to him was very fair. I think he stood up for something and it cost him his job, or it cost him, for example, endorsements are really, they make a lot of money through endorsements. But for example, Tiger Woods kind of had his issues with his wife and everything and all that stuff, and then he lost all of his endorsements. But that was because of a personal issue that happened in his life. And Colin Kaepernick is losing his job, his endorsements, his finances over standing up for something that he believes in, or standing up for justice for his community. I don't see how that's really fair for him to sort of have to lose his job because of, I don't know what the stipulations are in the NFL where maybe there's certain things that you can't do. But it's I think people have lost endorsements over scandal and everything else, and he lost it over kneeling for the anthem. Not like he was sort of going out there and becoming violent or anything like that. He did a very, very simple action. So I don't think it's very fair.
This is what you got anything to add? No. This is what I'm trying to say. There's the thing is, when you do something like that, you expect people to follow your lead. That's the thing. There's a lot of snitches on the roster, or just people that are just trying to get their money. They're not. You're gonna say, okay, you guys kneel and lose money, get fired. I'm gonna go and get all this love from the big white owner that's owning my team and all that, and just get a big contract. There's a lot of people that are just looking out for themselves and being selfish instead of taking the sacrifice. That's why the NFL doesn't fear anything, as opposed to the NBA. If a big player like LeBron or I don't know who else is Stephen Curry says something, they know that people will literally follow his lead, and the NBA will be in shock. The NFL does not have that. Like every man is literally on their own, especially Colin Kaepernick. So that's probably why it's not happening.
So do you feel like black athletes in the NBA have more say or influence than NFL athletes, like black NFL athletes?
Definitely, they definitely do. I mean, LeBron just made a whole album. I don't know where he found the time.
Wait,
And there's a movie coming out.
Like,
Yeah.
so
did he really make an album?
Yeah, he did. With 2 Chainz talking
I'm
about
dying.
this stuff. Yeah.
But I think the difference with the NFL and the NBA is the viewership. So like people who watch and support the NBA, it's different from who watch the NFL, right? It's a different sort of demographic of people, and so and that's kind of what I saw with Kaepernick. It was very much kind of like he's not patriotic because he's not like he's kneeling during the anthem. And I'm like, that's actually not the point of what's happening. But people put it outside of burning his jersey and all sorts of crazy things. It was a lot more extreme. But I feel like with the NBA, it's a different type of viewership. There's like people I think who are maybe a little bit more inclusive than like in the NFL, and because the NFL is a very like American sport. Football is very American, and so the people that support each one I think are a little bit different, and so they would be behind the players for the NBA and not so much behind the ones for the NFL. And so I think it's a more heated climate to do something like that as opposed to doing that. Like if you kneel in the NBA, I think you'd get a lot more solidarity than if you kneeled in the NFL. Like you're really taking a risk with that one because of the sort of like social climate behind that. Yeah.
That's true. I mean, yeah, what were you going to?
No, I was just saying, like, Sister Ashley's point is, like, very true. And it's, like, the viewers, like, it's who's really paying attention to that, you know? Because, like, a lot of, it's just a reality. A lot of black people, I feel like, tend more towards the NBA than to football. I feel like football is more, like, a patriotic, something that was instemmed within the American system, culture, within, like, it's something that's, like, moves within families, like, you know what I'm saying? Like this street is like this team and the other street's the other team, like, you know? So I feel like because of that, like, whereas the NBA is more newer, so like, you know, and black people are predominantly dominate the NBA. Yeah. So yeah, you're 100% right. I agree with you on that, yeah.
This just means like we have to have our stuff together. Like I don't want to swear, but we have to have our like literally have all our stuff together. We have to support each other because in order for us, like literally we're the minority, obviously. Even though a lot of our players are in the league, if we don't have each other's backs, and they are just a bunch of viewers, and they see that we're not, you know, really trying to stand up for, you know, kneel down for each other, it's going to be a problem. So we just have like what I was saying with the players. Like some players, you know, they say I'm not really with that. I'll rather provide for my family. Some players they say I'll take the sacrifice. So we really just have to stick for each other. It starts with the people with themselves. Like, that's really it.
I think I agree with that too, and I think it kind of starts from like the masses actually, because although like they may not necessarily get the support in the actual NFL community itself, I think the outside community could still support them, and that community could be the one that pushes them to the next level, because there's definitely power in numbers. And even if you're not seeing the support within the NFL specifically, if more of, like, for example, the black community was to stand behind Kaepernick and not be so much about kind of like, you know, however it affected him in terms of his job. Like, if we were more kind of like, yes, like, what he's standing up for is a very serious topic in society right now. And I think, like, we as the masses have more power than we think. And so that sort of solidarity also comes from the people who are sort of just viewing him. Like, he's not really on an island on his own. Like, it's something like, okay, we recognize what he's doing. Now we as people have to kind of sort of take his platform to the next level too. So I think it's for both sides.
I feel like a lot of black athletes, like NFL-wise, a lot of black NFL athletes did kind of sign with Kaepernick, but it's kind of similar to what we were discussing about with Travis Scott. Remember Travis Scott, we were saying how we can't expect him to be a social activist. It's kind of the same thing for these NFL athletes. We can't expect them to be social activists. A lot of them did kneel, but at the same time they're afraid because they're going to lose their money. They could lose their contract, same thing happened with Kaepernick. So, you know, it's kind of similar to what we discussed with Travis Scott.
But, like, it just shows that in terms of management with a lot of these teams, we're not there. You get what I'm saying? Because a lot of these teams and a lot of the management within the NBA teams, there's a lot of black management. And a lot of these football teams, there isn't a lot of black management. So the risks are way more higher where there's not really any support internally within these, because it's a workspace, it's a job, so there isn't really any authoritative support, and it's just sad, like, you know. And I feel like if there was more authoritative support, then I feel like more athletes will be, you know, will feel more comfortable to really take a kneel and be okay, fine, you know, I'll take that risk. But there's no support. I don't know.
And maybe by like Kaepernick doing that though, he's now sort of incited change though, because now that I mean, it's kind of like that for the Black community. There's always sort of that one person who has to stand and sort of almost take like a sacrifice or take the hit for it, so that change can happen, right? And so that's kind of exactly what he did, because his story was like worldwide and like and known by everybody. Now, you know, he took the hit for it, but at the same time, because of what he did, now there has to be change, because they recognize that they're not represented well in the NFL, and that more players can do the same thing. So I don't want to call him like the MLK of the NFL, but he definitely took the hit for it. But sometimes that's what you have to do in order for like your message to be heard.
Like, which is better, a Colin Kaepernick or someone like an artist doing it at halftime? Who has more power? Because Colin Kaepernick is literally his life kind of depends on the NFL. As an artist, their life really doesn't depend on these sports events, but they can get a lot of backlash and all that, but they can still, you know, keep their fan base. So which one do you think is more important?
I feel like it depends on who has the most influence, because let's say if we're gonna compare an artist like Beyonce or Bruno Mars, or like say if Michael Jackson was still alive and he was a social activist, and then we're gonna compare it to someone like Colin Kaepernick, who I'm pretty sure was a bench player at the NFL. Not to disrespect him.
I disagree. He was on a bench.
I'm not sure.
He was a 49ers QB.
I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like it depends on the influence, depends on how popular that person is. I don't think it really matters if they're a rapper, I feel like it just depends on the influence, like how popular they are.
Yeah, but like music, I'm trying to get to this point, because music is more of like a canvas where you can, you know, draw whatever, say whatever. You do have the ability to somewhat keep your fans, but sports is you report to the gym and you have someone that owns your team, owns your franchise, that coaches and manages you. So you have to submit to the rules. So music is kind of open, and sports is kind of, you know, a little bit more closed. So I just wanted to know which one
So
would
probably
you think?
music, because they have that ability to like express more than art or like athletes.
Influence does matter.
Yeah.
You're
And
right.
that's the reason why I feel like Travis Scott failed the community. And I'm gonna stand by my word, and it is what it is. Like, I genuinely feel the community.
No, I would agree too, because see, like with music you have more of the flexibility to be able to protest, not only so much within what you say, but like your music itself, right? Like a lot of people use music as a form of protest. And so, for example, somebody like Kendrick Lamar, you hear very much so like how his music is sort of like a reflection of his life, but also the injustices that happen in the Black community. And so they have a lot more flexibility to be able to sort of work their way through, whereas people who are, you know, in the NBA, in the NFL, NHL, whatever, they don't have that same sort of flexibility to be able to, like, they're on contracts. Some of their contracts are not long, short, like they have very specific sort of guidelines that they have to stay within. And so as an artist, and I think anytime that you have a platform, like, you know, whether you choose to or not, you're still, I feel like, somewhat responsible, because you have that platform now, you have this following, you have all of that. And so there is a small level of responsibility that you have to the people around you when you see injustice. Whether you act on it or not is your choice, but I think when you're in the public eye, you now have a responsibility to people that comes with the territory. You know, it's kind of like if somebody was a politician or whatever, like we would treat them kind of in the same way because of what they stand for and who they are. So
what I'm getting here is there should be a clout contract. Like get to a certain level, you have no option but you have to be responsible for what you give up. I don't know.
No, but it's for real. Like, Travis Scott is in Calabasas. You get what I'm saying? And it's like, no disrespect. Like, you're living your life. You get what I'm saying? But there's people who are suffering from like real life social injustices. If it's not in the league, then it's systemic and it's within the schools. You get what I'm saying? So you risking like what? no disrespect again, $1 million for 2 seconds doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you can't say that because you're not in a situation.
Exactly, you're not necessarily.
He's also young too,
Yeah.
so I mean that he's fairly young as well too, so that could kind of inhibit his decision making.
No, but like, and that's how I feel. Like, I feel like he still could have went on stage and just like change the lyric, or even do like this, like do a salute. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Just please give us a black power salute, please. Just real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or like, you know, like Dapt Maroon, like Adam Levine on the stage, like show that, like.
I don't think anyone would have liked that.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think that would have gone over
But
very well.
but that would have shown like community, like we like there's injustices, but like we're all human beings at the end of the day. You know? And it's like, I feel just something like there could have been symbolism, like something.
Yeah.
You know? And Maroon 5, like they shouldn't be like not talked about either, because they didn't do their part.
You should
You
bring
know?
them as well.
Because they collaborate with a lot of black artists, so I feel like it's right to support black artists in their community, you know?
Yeah, they have that. So yeah, exactly too. It's not even only on Travis Scott. Like Maroon 5 also has this responsibility too as an artist, right? To know that when the sort of controversy is happening in the NFL at that time, because at any point in time there can always be controversy when you do the NFL, depending on what's going on in the world, right? And so you as an artist, whether you choose to or not, you have the platform to address it. And so it's kind of one of those small opportunities where it's like, I have the world kind of at my feet right now, and what do I do with that time, right? It's like, oh, some people just perform and leave it at that. But even people like, for example, maybe like Lady Gaga, who performed I think the year before, you know, if she's talking about things in terms of like justice for like maybe the LGBT like community, she'll address that in her music or in her song or whatever she do, and even if it's like for 5 seconds, she'll do it. So it's kind of like
The thing is, I don't want to. I hate to interrupt you.
no,
Because your point is good. The thing is, those like, I don't want to sound a little bit awkward or uncomfortable, but that community, they support each other like crazy, like so crazy that Obama even actually like he made it illegal for them to, you know, for certain rules to be passed. That's the thing. They actually support themselves so much that like the higher ups would know if we didn't have certain things going their way, it would be a problem. So it all comes down to the people supporting the leader that takes all the backlash. That's all it comes down to, in my opinion.
So I have a question. Why do you think, as a black community, we don't stand with each other as much as we should?
Because we have no leader. Because I feel like before, like especially during times like say like civil rights movement, we had Rosa Parks, we had Martin Luther King, we had all these leaders come and unite the black community. But right now, I feel like we're so lost. Like we don't know who to follow. We don't know what to do. Like we're just all so this apart. You know, we're not together. And it's kind of showed with Kaepernick. You know, it showed that we aren't together as a people.
And that's why like I agree with Jada, like you cannot rely on people like Beyonce and them, because they're doing it for money. Like the hair, all of that is just a costume, like it's an image of what they're trying to portray. But like when we had like someone like Obama and Michelle Obama in the White House, black people were able to be like, this is something I could live this life without having to be a rapper or having to be an athlete. Do you get what I'm saying?
I agree.
So it's like our perspectives are lost, and because of that, it's like we're now saying, oh my gosh, Travis Scott, be my leader. But the man's like, no, like I'm an entertainer, like let me sing my song and live my life, you know?
Yeah, that is true. I just took it in. We're literally talking about entertainers, like basketball players and rappers. Like that's literally our leaders nowadays. Like those are like the two most stereotypical, career choices for black males. But you are right, Swan, that we should have a leader. That's literally specifically his life is dedicated to leading our people, and that will change a lot of things.
And that comes from like, that also in part is I think like our responsibility as to who we put like the sort of attention and emphasis on, because a lot of times, you know, we kind of buy into what a lot of these people kind of sell out there. You know, we follow after these people, and then there's no sort of like, there's the Michelle Obamas, the Oprahs, those people, they kind of get lost in the undercurrent and that's not necessarily our fault, it's just how media portrays things very much so, but I think like it's also our responsibility to sort of put more emphasis on those like role models that we know are going to help make change. And I think Obama was a big one, and then now that he's out of office, it's like you don't really hear about him as much anymore. We lost our way in a sense, like it's very true. I think we did, and I think he kind of helped us to be sort of like a symbol for the community to say we can still do this, like we can still be represented. And so I think like we've kind of lost that because, you know, to be honest with you, like I can't go throughout the day without hearing about the Kardashians, and it kind of drives me crazy like on a daily basis, because it's like, and it's for things that are so trivial that I'm kind of just like how is something like this like so sort of put above so many other things in society? Like there's so much happening in the world and so many people are just like mainly concerned about this, and I'm like, where is all of our attention going? And it's like, how do we redirect ourselves to bring it back to sort of these things, like in these issues that are extremely important? Like this is, I kind of equate that as like people are dying and then like the Kardashians, it's kind of like black people are being killed, you know, for no apparent reason, you know, and in that case it was by police, you know, because of what was going on in America. You know, there wasn't any sort of, in most cases there wasn't really any sort of reason for them to die in those situations. It was just a matter of de-escalating the situations and going from there. And so it's like, how did we come so far where people's lives are no longer, like they don't, black lives don't really actually matter in comparison to somebody who, you know, kind of cheated on somebody for some other reason. Like it's just, we really have lost our way in that sense.
It's because this world is really trendy. Like we're very trendy. Like all this Gucci, all this Louis Vuitton, all this boycotting stuff is done by the time May or April comes. Yeah, that's done. What do you want to say?
But like, I feel like it's the reason why is because people love to numb their mind from like their everyday stresses. Like I feel like we live in a world where it's like you're constantly being stressed out by something. So if you don't have to like listen to like another like boohoo story of like someone getting shot or like, you know, but instead listening to someone else's pain about being cheated on, like we rather run that direction than deal with sometimes reality. And I feel like that's like something that's like, I feel like the world's at to a point where people here, like I feel like people in North America, at the end of the day, we run the world. Like we live a very good lifestyle compared to people in Asia or like other places. So I feel like a lot of the times we just use it as like a mind numbing tool. Like we don't have to deal with anything. We just like be entertained as much as we can. And it's sad because it's like how are we supposed to bring about change in this world if we just use it, if we use like stupid stories as like a numbing.
It's kind of like, it seems kind of like the easy way out. It's just like a way to not have to be able to deal with the realities of the world. And it's like, I feel like this generation more specifically too is kind of supposed to be the generation it's weird because we have so much resources in front of us, more so than any other generations ever had, like in the existence of the world, and yet we don't use some, like for example the internet that didn't exist a few years ago. And so we have so much tools like at our feet, but we're more concerned about these sort of very trivial things in life, and then we wonder why change is not happening. And it's because like the sort of distractions that are around us are not allowing us to sort of stand up out there and say something more meaningful and stand up for something more meaningful. It really has changed. And it's like, how do you get people, especially this generation, to be on board and stand up for something, and to make those things the center of attention again? Like, well, I don't even know how you can really go about that. It's a difficult question.
I don't know, like I just feel like TV is not a thing anymore, and it's like Instagram is like our new television show, and Netflix is like our new television show. Like I feel like people run to that now. I don't know, I just feel like justice is like no longer prioritized anymore. Like I feel like people are in a space where it's like, well, we all have the same equal rights now, and like even if there are some systemic racism, who cares? Because transparently it seems like everyone's on the same equal field, but it's really not, you know? So I feel like people are just okay with like viewing it as it's the same playing field, but in reality it's not. So they're just good to just be like, I don't know, there's like be in tune with the Kardashians, but the Kardashians are not like paying their bills, you know? Like it just doesn't make any sense to me, you know?
I'm not really, I don't know. It seems like it's a long-term thing that we have to figure out. Like there's not going to be a solution tomorrow. So yeah, I feel like there has to be, like everyone talked about, everyone gave different points. Like there has to be a leader that takes some backlash. There has to be the support that people, our people give that leader, and there has to be people from, with more authority, more power that helps us, and all together you just brought up social media or TV. The things we portray they have to be very important too, and all of those combined will probably spark a change. So I feel like that's really the
There's
solution.
definitely like levels to it.
Yeah.
That require like people, and I think that's it's kind of fun like you say that because I think it goes back full circle because at the end of the day like we're talking about people who have influence, and so a lot of the sort of push for the change comes from the influencers first. Like we have the power as people too, but like the platform that they're on, they have a larger following, and so maybe it's true that the responsibility does go back to them at some point because we're looking for a leader, right? We're looking for somebody that can help us sort of inflict this change, and so maybe there is more responsibility than they think in terms of, you know, maybe it's their choice, but they may still have more responsibility than they actually think, especially in the Black community where we're looking for proper representation. And in a moment where you are in the Super Bowl and have that opportunity to say something and you don't, do you set us back a little bit? Like, do you know what I mean? I can't really fully blame it on you, but I'm saying it's like a level of responsibility. It almost seems like it comes full circle because you're looking for people in power to be able to say something, and in turn that sparks some kind of change.
Yeah, you concluded it right there.
I'm so sorry. It's just when you said it and then you kind of put it in that way, like it made a lot of sense because it came back to that one person that we talked about in the beginning, right? And the influence that they have.
So now, do we feel like Travis Scott's black card should get revoked? We'll do this one by one. I say yes.
Oh gosh. She put it out there.
Go back.
I say no because we talked about it. Like, you can't expect this guy to be a social activist. He's not one. He's a rapper. He has a wife, or not a wife. Sorry. He has a girlfriend. He has a kid. Alleged girlfriend. He has a kid. He has responsibilities, and he wants to take care of his children. He wants to take care of himself. So we can't expect him to, do something like that or risk that. So I can't expect him to do that.
I'm gonna say no, mainly because although he didn't do anything in that sort of moment, he still has opportunities to do things. And so, his career hopefully will be lengthy enough where maybe in not doing whatever happened at the Super Bowl, he may reflect on that and say, okay, because I think for example, Kendrick Lamar, a lot of that sort of thing started to change later in his career in terms of what he chose to focus on. And so I think with Travis, I wouldn't revoke his black card because I think he still will have opportunities to speak up and say something. We'll give him one more chance.
He can keep his black card. Like Ashley said, he's young. He has so much time to hone his craft, to hone his opinions on political views. He's fine. Give him a break.
But the thing is, Jada, nowadays, younger artists have more fans now. Younger artists, you have young and being an artist is a thing now more than being a veteran and knowing who you are. It's more of a thing. But the thing is, younger artists don't know who they are. They get involved in a bunch of cases and all that. So I don't know. Someone like Travis Scott, I think I wouldn't remove his black card. But I just took this in. He had two opportunities. He performed at the Grammys too. I just took this in, and he didn't do any. I don't know what that was, unless it was a hidden message. You guys saw his performance. He came out of a cell or whatever that was and started doing a bunch of crazy stuff. But I wouldn't remove it, not just because not everyone who's black is just gonna be an activist. Not all of us are just gonna support or lead like that. So I'm not gonna remove it, but it's questionable. I don't know.
Wow. I oppose your guys' arguments, but I'm gonna still keep my decision. I'm sorry. It is what it is. But this concludes our discussions about Travis Scott's performance at the Super Bowl. Thank you guys so much for watching.